Rob, the new partnership will focus on acquiring these off-campus buildings. They're near the top universities, growing enrollments. Other markets where you purchase these properties, Tempe, Arizona, Binghamton, New York. Where else are you looking that you haven't bought?
Sure. Well, I have to say, as a University of Michigan grad, I'm not thrilled that you're calling the University of Notre Dame and Ohio State top universities, but we go with the
Well, my
opportunity.
wife went to the Ohio State University, so
The
some might say I'm a
the
smart man for saying that.
yeah. You know what? We really like flagship state universities, particularly in growing Sunbelt states, and even more so where they have a STEM focus.
Mm.
So, for example, some of our largest campuses would be Texas A&M, University of Florida, Florida State, Purdue University. We're at about 90 campuses now. There's probably another 20 to 30 that would fit our investment thesis. And by and large, they fall within that theme of large, I would say at least 20,000 students, typically 30, 40, 50,000 students. We tend to prefer public over private, but it's situational. And again, schools that we think really represent a strong return on investment as far as the tuition dollar.
Yeah, talk a little bit about how the return in student housing compares to other commercial real estate sectors. How do you actually generate a return here?
Well, look, we actually we've been at it for 26 years. We've been ever refining the skills and the capabilities we have. We think we've built, really the premier operating platform for student housing. It has certainly similarities to other types of commercial real estate, particularly multifamily, senior housing, but there are a lot of nuances that are specific. Some of them include the fact that we're dealing with 18 to 24-year-old consumers who are tip of the spear as far as technology adaptation, the fact that they're often looking for a different experience as they matriculate in their sophomore, junior, and senior year. And things just move at a really, really fast clip within student housing. That certainly, when we talk to people in other areas of commercial real estate, that's their observation of students. And again, I think it's the age and the stage of life that our customers are at. One of the reasons why we and others have found the sector to be so resilient is because of just how much families prioritize higher education for their children. A great story I like to tell is our chief operating officer came from Disney, and he said, families like to save for 4 to 5 years for a Disney vacation. I said, that's great. Families save for 18 years to get a college degree, and maybe even before the kid is born in this country. And that's really what makes it so strong and so resilient, is the importance that we as a society place on being able to give this to our children, our grandchildren.
Rob, how are you thinking about demographic shifts, affordability pressures, and just broadly changing enrollment patterns right now?
You know what? I feel gratified that we've been focused on this for a decade. Since I'd say about 2015 or 2016, we've been extremely focused on the schools and then the properties within those schools that represent the greatest values. So, the 105,000 beds that we own and operate across the country, and this new acquisition fits squarely within that, is in the 50th to, I'd say, the 75th percentile in rent price. And we think that is casts a very wide net as far as value and affordability. I think that people are absolutely right to be concerned about some of the highest end product that is being added with just ever more amenities and ever more cost. That's not where we play. That's not where this portfolio is. So I think you want to look first and foremost to a university that represents a good value. And so getting an engineering degree from a public university, for example, is about as strong as value could be. And then once we're at a school like that, if we can cast a wide net of product locations and floor plans and price points that across the board deliver value, that's where, we feel really comfortable for us and our investors being.
How do you think about the idea of fewer foreign students really impacting the pool of potential renters when it comes to student housing?
Across our portfolio, it's typically in the low single digit percentages. It's 1, 2, 3%. And by and large, those are graduate students. Our portfolio is predominantly undergrads. I will tell you, compared to other international markets where students coming from overseas are a very, very large component. If you look at Australia, or if you look at the UK and Spain, for example, those are heavily dependent on students coming from the US, coming from Korea, coming from China. That's not been the case in the United States, never been the case in the United States. What's really unique I think, about the US compared to other markets is just not only first of all, we're by far and away the largest market for higher education in the world with over 20 million students. But on top of that, the lifestyle for undergrads in the United States is to often travel hundreds or thousands of miles away and have a true residential experience. That's not as much of a phenomenon as you go around the globe. And so for our portfolio, again, we may have certain assets that might be 5 to 10% international students, but by and large and across our portfolio, it's around 1 to 2%. And I don't really see that changing.
Just in the last 45 seconds here, Rob, I know, some might not agree that these are top universities, but the universities that I mean, I would, but I don't know how Rob feels. These are really competitive schools, though.
I'm so not happy about Notre Dame, but we'll make it work.
These are really popular. There's a ton of demand for students to go to these schools. Some, smaller regional schools are actually losing enrollment, though. So I'm wondering how much is this really a bet on these elite universities continuing to consolidate demand versus a bet on, student housing in general?
You are 100% right that a long overdue consolidation is occurring in U.S. higher education. I think that smaller liberal arts colleges and lower tier public universities are going to continue to be under pressure. Fortunately, this portfolio and our overall 161 community portfolio has long been has solely been focused on larger, typically public universities. So that trend is happening. It's not going to reverse. I think when you look at other sectors of the economy, like healthcare, for example, I think higher education is undergoing a similar type of consolidation. And absolutely, the winners will be the largest, most resource school, and particularly the ones that I think that families can really, it's a no-brainer that they're getting a lot of return on their tuition dollar investment.